Title of this article, it says, as coronavirus panic spreads, Uber and Lyft riders of Asian descent are reporting discrimination from drivers. We got to take a little step back here, right, and sort of use an eagle approach looking down at this whole subject. There's a lot of fear going around. There's a lot of panic going around, and people are reacting to the fear and the panic, right? So this is not, I don't think, a matter of discriminating towards an Asian rider. It's just that if you're picking up at an airport, right, you don't know where that individual comes from. You're right. What you are looking out for are obviously specific type of symptoms, and you are just being careful. You're just being cautious, and you have every right as a rider, as a driver, to be extremely careful and cautious and make a decision for yourself. That doesn't equate to racial discrimination, right? So I want to sort of go into one particular person here. Lillian Wang was told by a Lyft driver who picked her up from San Francisco airport that he had refused rides from people with Asian-sounding names, right? And that, Lillian, is nothing against you. I totally understand that you would take this very, very personal. This is just what that individual, that driver, hears and sees in the media, right? Especially when we know people are flying in. That driver at that moment does not know where you are flying in from, right? You might have been doing a local US trip, you know. They have no idea. They might, in their minds, think that you flew in from China, right? So we just have to be really careful here before we feel like, hey, someone is putting this racial stamp on me, right? Just because I'm Asian. You know, look at the bigger picture here and understand the bigger picture on how people are reacting from all of these impulses in the media, from everything that's going on with the numbers climbing and climbing, with many, many deaths reported, right? I think every driver and every rider has the right to do what they think is the best for them. You're taking care of yourself, right? You're taking care of yourself as a driver, protecting yourself. You're taking care of yourself as a rider, protecting yourself. So this really, it's not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street. We just got to use some common sense here and understand what is most important for us as the individual. Other riders shared similar experiences as fears about the coronavirus spread. Exactly that. There are fears about this coronavirus spreading, and people are reacting to those fears, and very often rightfully so. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And that doesn't mean I'm putting a stamp on you as an individual. I'm not saying you have the coronavirus, right? I'm just being careful. Lyft and Uber say they have policies that are designed to curb discrimination, right? And I don't think that Uber and Lyft should immediately jump on cases like this and say, hey, you know what, the driver discriminated or the rider discriminated. This is, you know, Uber management needs to understand that that individual making that call is making that call for their own health and safety, period, right? We should not, in this case, start using this discrimination stamp. Eric Han, who works in a Microsoft retail store in Seattle, told CNBC he called an Uber on Monday, stepped into the car and coughed. It was a cold day. His driver immediately asked if Han was from China, and he responded that he was not. The driver commented that his cough meant he might have the coronavirus and opened a window. I don't have it, said Han. I'm from the United States. Han recalled that the driver responded, whatever you say. Look, I don't think the driver did the wrong thing here, right? The driver was taking care of himself. Driver doesn't know, hey, you know, you're from Seattle, you're flying locally. The driver sees and hears that you were coughing, right? They're being safe, they're being cautious. They're not putting a label. Eric Han, I believe that discriminating label was put on him right away. I wouldn't go that far, and I wouldn't go that far if I'm Uber or Lyft, right? And that's this is not an Asian thing, a driver thing, a rider thing. This is about the virus, right? This is about the fear of the virus going around, of people coming into the car coughing, you know. So what? You have the right to open your window, and you should not take it personal at that moment. I'm not one to take offense very easily, so I wasn't angry. Just kidding, of chuckling under my breath, like, wow, this is really happening. Hans said he did not report the driver to Uber. I did not read this part, right? So, you know, I should not be there here judging Han. My mistake. Because he's chuckling and says, wow, is this really happening? And he actually did not report the driver to Uber. Weeks earlier, Han said he was told by a group of strangers in downtown Seattle to go back to my homeland. Now, that is not cool. That should have never, ever happened to him, right? Go back to your homeland. The driver has no right to make that judgment. But as far as the coughing goes, as far as the coronavirus goes, right, I do think the driver acted appropriately. And I do think that Han was completely on the money here when he said, you know what, I'm like, wow, this just happened, but I did not report that driver. But that when people said, hey, go back to your homeland, now that statement is shocking. You know, that now is someone judging you by your color and by your looks, right? Not on the coronavirus, just but on your looks. And it is not right to say, hey, go back to your motherland. I'm a born U.S. citizen. I was born in Washington, D.C. Many times when I do my live stream, people come out with the craziest racial slurs, say, you have this crazy, stupid accent, go back to your motherland. They don't know that I lived in Europe. They don't know that I lived on the African continent, and they don't know that I was born in the United States. Just because of my accent, people will label me. So that is discrimination, of the worst degree, what they did here by telling this individual, go back to your motherland. But going back to the coronavirus, the coughing in the car, let me just tell you, Han, don't be offended by that. The driver just did what he think was the best for his own health and safety, and nothing against you as a wonderful human being, right? Okay, so this is interesting. So as the coronavirus spreads, so too are the racist attacks directed at Asian Americans. We shouldn't go down that road. We should engage in dialogue about the subject matter before we just start branding each other. For ride-sharing platforms, Lyft and Uber, these incidents appear to be happening despite the efforts to curb discriminatory behavior. One member of a Facebook group with more than 12,000 Lyft and Uber drivers noted that at least 5 posts per day mention the virus. And we have the right to mention the virus because it's real, right? And we have the right to make suggestions that people should put on masks or get sanitizers because we just want to rather create a safe instead of an unsafe environment for all people, right? So we have the right to talk about the topic and make the posts. I, myself, have made a couple of posts on this, and I fully believe I did the right thing, right? But going out and say, hey, let's be cautious. Let's just be careful. We're not going out there branding individuals, right? We're just being cautious. Are we seeing the symptoms, the snotty noses, the coughing, the thing? We can be cautious, folks. We have to take care of ourselves, right? So the member who shared screenshots with CNBC said that many drivers were saying they did not want to pick up riders of Asian descent and that it was not safe to do so, right? Here's the automatic fear, right? And the media, CNBC, is also to blame for this, right? You're going to an airport, you're picking up an individual, right? You would never, ever make a racist comment against that individual flying in from Asia, whether it's from Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, or China, a year ago. But because the media has created all this hype and the fear around the subject, all you are doing is you're being cautious. So you should not be labeled as being discriminating, right? You're just being cautious. So I think the media got the story wrong, my friends, right? Okay, so not China. Han is far from alone. When Lillian Wang attempted to get into her Lyft ride share at San Francisco airport on Sunday, a driver refused to open the car door. According to Wang, who is Asian American and who works in the technology sector, the driver let them in only after a Caucasian friend showed up. CNBC video producer Katie Shuloff, who says she put in the request for the ride. Once in the backseat, the driver asked if the pair were returning from China, and Shuloff responded that they'd just returned from Mexico. Okay, so you're not from China, he responded. The driver then noted that he's been told to be careful and has refused ride requests from people with Chinese-sounding names. He also asked Wang if she was in fact a rider called He, and noted that he had already turned down that request. After registering a complaint, Shuloff received a call from a representative from Lyft's support team informing her that the driver had been removed from the platform. Now, I find it shocking that the driver had been removed from the platform because he or she was taking care of their own safety, right? I don't think that Uber and Lyft very often know how to handle issues and jump to that discrimination, story too fast just to protect themselves, right? We've got to do the right thing. They might be discriminatory. Let's deactivate them. I'll tell you what, let's look at the Hans Berkland story yesterday in Phoenix, Arizona, when the guy made a racial slur. Did Uber deactivate that individual for discriminating? No, they gave him temporary suspension, not deactivation. Us drivers get deactivated too fast. And the reason why is we can be replaced with another driver, but a rider cannot. That rider, once deactivated, they have lost that income stream. So they don't deactivate those type of people, right? But you have to really, really research the case here and understand why drivers are acting like this. Let me repeat this, Uber and Lyft. Let me repeat this to you riders, right? It is what the media portrays, right? The stories about the coronavirus, starting with 1 death, now at 8 deaths a week later. Numbers going up, right? 400 deaths reported worldwide. Over 7,000 people infected in that 1 week. This is what drivers hear. So they are just being cautious and they're being safe. They are not putting a label on you, right? They are just hearing the stories. This is where it originated, right? It's been proven. It came from that Wuhan district, and this is how they're reacting. So Uber and Lyft, you have a lot of work to do. And riders, don't jump to conclusions too quickly. Understand that a driver is doing his job and is in and out of airports all day long. You as a rider also don't want a driver to contract the virus, let's say, from someone who truly has the virus and then pass it on to you as a rider. So we as humans have to understand each other here on this subject, right? That this is about safety and health, not about the label of discriminating. And again, Uber and Lyft, you have a lot to learn. You have double standards here, and you've proven it over and over again, right? So I'm not going to go into the whole rest of the story because there's several other incidences, right? Lyft spokesman Dana Davis said in a statement that the company takes any allegation of discrimination very seriously, right? Davis added that Lyft is monitoring official updates on the global outbreak closely and taking our cues from international and domestic public health experts. All I have to say is that Uber quickly suspended 240 rider accounts in Mexico. They haven't done that in the United States. Lyft and Uber are not telling us the truth of what's going on in the United States, how many accounts they suspended, right? So, Uber and Lyft are not being honest here either, right? They're doing this in other markets, but in their main market where they make the money, understand this is all about money. So they're doing this fine song and dance to try and please both sides. They do not want to lose the riders pay. They know that the drivers can be replaced. It's a complete case of double standards. Deactivate the one, temporarily suspend the other. That's all I have to say. Have a great day. Your input, please.